Sagt der Herr der Gemara. We're up to the new Mishnah. Hiniach banim gedolim uktanim. If the nifter left over both adult children as well as minor children. Morning, we're starting the Mishnah on the Kuflam Tessimon. The halach is ein hagedolim misparisen ayde aktanim like tanim nizonim ala gedolim. What that means is until they split it up and everyone has their money, they have to survive. So there's two categories of expenses. There's the category of misparnisin, and there's the category of nizonim. And the Rashbam explains the difference. Misparnisim, Dr. Rashbam, is a levush ksus, is getting dressed, it's clothing. Nizonim is mizonis mam. Ulafisha parnosus hagedolim, merubin mi parnosus haktanim. Since adults spend more money on clothing and other accessories than they spend on food, umazon aktanim v'tipulon. So Moti is wondering, what do you mean? Adults eat more than children do. Yeah, but they have tickets in shul, so they don't spend so much on food. Umazon aktanim v'tipulon meruim mishal gedolim, and generally, mazon costs more by children than it costs by adults. The kachut shachloimer. The Quran could say, you can't buy clothes from the estate, wait till you get your share, and buy what you need from your own share. And the adults can tell the young children, you have no right to buy food with money from the estates. Let's all split up and we'll each have our own chelik. And then with the chelik that you received, that's the chelik with which you will. That's the chelik with which you will buy whatever your needs are. Zok the Mishnah weiter. What if the older boys got married and they used money from the estate to pay for their chastan and to prepare them for the chastan? Nasu gedolim noshim v'asu tzarchei chuppah mitfusis abayis, and this occurred la'achar misavian but koydem chalukah, that the ktanim have the same rate. Yisu gam ktanim kamoykein koydem chalukah. So the ktanim says, listen, you took your money to get married from the joined estate, which means we all had to chip in. So too, we're going to when we marry, we want that same thing. Why should we have to pay for it exclusively out of our chelik? So therefore, Yisu ktanim. The mamur ktanim. But if they claim after their father died, so some of the children got married before their father died, and their father made them some beautiful weddings. Now the children that were single when their father died, when it's their turn to get married, they'll say, hey, I also want that same type of wedding paid for by our father's estate, not for my own chelik. There it's ein shoymin lahen, ella whatever their father gave them is what they're entitled to, and anything extra will have to come out of their own share. As the Rashbam says, we want to get married, but we don't want to get married in a Mesmedrash. We want to get married in the Beverly, no, not called the Beverly. What's it called? The big fancy hall in Brampton, lovely. What's the name of that big hall? I don't want to get married in the Bite. I want to get married in the, I really forgot, Embassy Grand. I want to get married in the Embassy Grand. Ein shemelem el mashanosan lamavin v'chayav nosan v'achim mefarish lo b'gemor. The same thing would occur if there were only daughters involved and there were no sons. So niach banos gedolos uktanos, ein gedolos misparnesois aide aktanos, loy katanos nizoinos ala gedolos. And the same thing with Nosu Gedolos, Yisu Ktanos. If the older group of girls take money from the estate to prepare themselves for their wedding, the Ktanos could do the same. But the Mamru Ktanos while our father was alive, he made you a beautiful wedding. We want that same thing from the estate. Ain't Shaiman there, you don't listen. So it seems like the exact same rules that apply to if there are only boys yarshening would apply if there were only girls yarshening. But there's one difference. There's one chomer by bonis over bonim. The halacha is when the bonis are not receiving a Yerusha, because there are boys there, and the Yerusha is distributed exclusively to the boys. In that case, there's something called ksubas. It's called in the Tnai Ksuba. It says that b'nukvin the hava l'chiminoi, all of the female children that I have, inun mitzalim inichsi, they will be able to be sustained off of the estate even before any boys can take Yerusha. So if there are some boys, then the girls have a leg up because they could take mizonos even before the boys get to take Yerusha. And if there's not enough for both, as we're going to see, the boys don't get Yerusha. The girls' receipt of mizonos has priority over the boys' Yerusha. But if there are no boys being yarshaning and there's only girls, well, then there's no mizonos. They'll each get their chelik and they'll have to figure out how to live off their chelik. There are no boys to take responsibility for their mizonos. Zok the head of the Gemara. Oops, I didn't put the mic on. Zok the head of the Gemara. Amar Rava. Hi Gadol Achi, the lavash v'ichsi mi beisa. What happens if there's the oldest brother who is being the executor? He is minding all of the business of the estates. And because of that, he feels he needs to look the part and he needs to dress good. When I first started working, so my boss would always play put us the Goyish talk show station. So one thing I remember from it was one goy was giving another goy business advice, and the business advice was dress British but think Yiddish. So in order to run a business, you have to dress the part. Unfortunately, today it doesn't work that way. So the halach is my the avad. Whatever he took, and they don't get to take. They don't get to take connected that. They can say, "Oh, you got yourself a very expensive suit. We're also all entitled to that." That's not the case. However, the Shpam speaks out. It's b'di'evet. So you have to do the bare minimum necessary to keep the business going, but you're not allowed to take advantage. Didn't we just say that the Gedolim cannot take any money at all? In here you're saying my da'avad. There are those who goyers bishatcha, meaning ladigers. These are the oldest boys aren't being involved in the operating estate. They're doing nothing at all. They're batlonim. So they're not allowed to take anything from the estate. Of course, they shouldn't be able to take anything over their other brothers. Why would they be different? What right would they have? It's still good that they shouldn't look like they're homeless. They should still look somewhat presentable. Kamashlan, absolutely not from the estate. Well, let's see what the sharchas are. So the Rashbam touches sharcha as. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Rashbam. It is Rashbam. Odom bottle, a batlin, she'ein lahem revach b'davar. And therefore the estate will have no benefit from the fact that this guy might be a flashy dresser. Tosfos learns b'chol svarim ksuv sharcha bereish u'va'orach gor shatcha b'dalet u'hu loshin sheket, as in quiet. Kamei batishkoi to aretz u'metagamino v'shadich Odom bottle v'shakti. He's quiet. He's idle and quiet. Eina oisik b'klum. He doesn't do anything at all. Okay, gewaltig. We talk the hele Gemara weiter. Nosu gedoylem yisuktan. Maika Omer. Exactly what does the Gemara mean to say? And the Rashbam says that the Gemara is asking something a little bit deeper. So let's read the Rashbam. Maika Omer de Mesnisen lefima shmuusa kasher reishal sefer. It seems like there's a paradox, a contradiction between the Reisha and the Sefer. The Katani Reisha, Nosu gedoylem yisuktan. The younger children are entitled to the same type of wedding out of the estate that the older children had. But the second half of the Mishnah says, Im Amr Katanim, which is mashma, that they don't get to take the money from the estate. So Zok to Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Hachikam, Nosu Gedolim la'achar Mrs. Aviyah. If the older children got married after their father was nifter, so they took the money from the estate, then the Ktanim are entitled to the same treatment. But if the older children were already married when their father died, and their father made them very beautiful chasanas, and now the Ktanim, after the father was nifter, wants the estate to pay for the same type of chasanas that the father paid for while the father was alive, there it's ain't shoymin lahem. Whatever their father gave them, that's what they have, but they're not entitled to take out of the communal estate to make any type of status wedding.
No, it's about mother.
The what?
Mother's older sister.
Right.
Father, grandfather.
Alive, so they have these fancy weddings.
Did not be by the time mother got married.
They all chipped in to make the same beautiful wedding. I have a friend who, when he married his wife, his shver was a rebbe who barely had parnosa. And after he married, his shver became very, very wealthy. And the later children were raised as millionaires. And what happened was he had this youngest daughter who was raised as a multimillionaire. And then he lost all his money, and now she was the shidduchim. So he said, my sister-in-law is not a good shidduch. I have to try to find her a shidduch, but she's not a good shidduch. My wife is a poor girl with a lot of money. She's a rich girl with no money at all. But Baruch Hashem, she's happily married. She probably married off her children. Zok to more about her. Hiniach bonois gedolos uketamis. Sholach le'avu bar gniva le'rova. Yilamdenu Rabbeinu. Rabbi, teach us. What would happen if a lofsa va'achla va'amda v'nissus? A woman borrowed a lot of money, and she spent the money, and then she married. Now, when a woman marries, she brings in certain nechosim. She might have been one of only girls, so they yashin from their father. Their father might have given them nichsamuluk, but whatever it is, she brought assets into the marriage, but she also brought a liability into the marriage. She owes money. So the question is, will the assets that she brought into the marriage, will they be meshubed to pay the Baal Chayv? And the question is totally in the following. Baal Lokeachava, when a Baal marries a woman and he takes possession of some of her items, do we treat him like a Lokeach? So that means at the time of the marriage, he's purchasing them, or Yerishava, or is he treated like a Yerish? What's an Achmina? Lokeachava, if he's a Lokeach, umilval peh, if it was a milva b'shtar, there's a shibud, of course, and the malva can surely come, seize any properties that she brought into the marriage because they were meshubit. But we're talking about a milva peh. A milva peh you cannot collect from the kuchos. So now these properties are protected against creditors. Or maybe the halacha is yerishava. We treat the husband's acquiring of the wife's property as a yorish, who milval peh goyvim in a yorish. And now milval peh, you can be goyve from yorish. So that was the shayla. Basically, once a woman gets married and she has chayvis, are her assets protected from the creditors? Amarle, so he told them back. So Rava told them, Tanina, so Rava told Avua, Baganiva, Tanina, it's actually a Mishnah. Our Mishnah, Nosu Gedolos, Yisuk Tamis. So what does this mean? Mylaf, Nosu Gedolos, Labal, just like if the adult girls got married, whatever they have, their husband gets, Yisuk Katanos Mi Baal. Now that there's, and this is similar to what Mati just explained, what happened with Mrs. Urman and her older sisters. They got married and they took assets into the marriage. Now those assets are considered liable to pay up the choiv that these older sisters had. If they took money from the estate to get married, so they have a liability to also afford their sisters the same type of wedding. So therefore, the younger sisters can go take assets that her older sisters brought into their marriage to pay for her wedding. So that was the Havamina that the Gemara had. My love, Nosu Gedolos Labal, Yisu Naharis Mibal. And therefore you have proof that the Baal is like a Yerush and not like a Lekeach, because his assets are going to be exposed to his sisters-in-law, to the chayv that's owed to them to pay off their weddings. Let's have a look at the Rashbam. Do we say Baal Lekeach Hava? Misha Vira Abanim Nichsa Ishtoi, Bein Bechayah, Bein La'achar Misa Kedin Lekeach. And you notice how the Rashbam separates the acquisition of the husband into two categories: while she's alive and after she dies. It's possible that there could be a status change in between, which the Rishonim discuss. Oy kedin Yerush, or is he like a Yerush? The nafkamina l'chal dinin hachalukin bein mekach liYerusha kihanach l'kamon b'shmaitz. And there's other issues as well that this will impact. This decision will impact. We're focused now on whether or not these assets are protected from creditors. So the Havamina was, Rava brought a right from our Mishnah that Yisu Ketanus Mibal Chel Kamamagion, the chelik that they're entitled to for their chasna, they can even take assets away from the older sisters. Alma Yerishava. So you see clearly that he only has to do a Yerish, and therefore the assets are liable to seizure if there is money owed by their wives. Dr. Marloi, who said that's how you understand our Mishnah? Maybe it's Nasu Gedolos Lebal, Yisu Ketanis Lebal. The same way the mother took only part of the estate that was there available, so too the daughters, the younger daughters, the same way the older daughters took from what was available in the estate, so too the younger daughters can only take from what's available in the estate. But they don't have recourse to take away assets that were already possessed by the older sisters as they married their husbands. Only for monies that are still there in the estate. She's entitled to take the same amount, provided that they're still there, left over. But no, she could not necessarily go and extract money that her sister took into her marriage. Is that so? Reb Chia taught us, Nosu gedolos lebal, Yisu ketanos mibal. Reb Chia actually learned our Mishnah the way Rava originally presented it, and we know Reb Chia's Mishnayos and his Girsois in the Mishnayos are the most reliable and trustworthy, and therefore, in fact, Reb Chia is telling us that those assets are liable to seizure, to loans that these women have. So, therefore, their younger sisters can even take assets from their marriage that they took from the estate, that they took from the father, to pay off their weddings. Zok to Gemara, you still don't have a right. You still don't have a raya, even though that's what our mission says. You know why? Because when it comes to marrying off a daughter, that's a bigger shibud than other loans. Dilma shiny parnosa, maybe parnosa, and parnosa here dafka means not mezonis, but it means the chiyuv that passed to his daughters. That's going to be much stronger. You know why it's much stronger? The islakala. Even if the father is a din of a lakeach, normally a lakeach could say, "Why should I pay off debt that occurred before I bought? How was I supposed to know that there was that such debt?" If it's milva bishtar and there's a coil that there's money owing on this property and there's a lien, there I can protect myself. But I can't protect myself if there's no coil. But if there's younger daughters there, everybody knows that there's going to be a marriage that has to occur, that the chosim are liable. So therefore, even though he has the din of aloikeach, he would still be liable. So therefore, Dr. Gemara, even though our Mishnah is telling us that the younger daughters can seize properties from the older married sister, that doesn't mean that he's kiyerish. It could still mean he's kilakeach, but this would be an exception because when he took those properties, when he married his wife, he knew very well that there's going to be a liability to marry off the younger girls. Let's see the Hilig Rashbam. Any Vatani Reb Chia Nosu Gedolos Labal Yisu Ketanis Mibal Alma Miyad Habai L'Moitziyim Miyad Habal Moitziyim. You do take it away. Mechlal Shechnisa Kala Moment Ve'afilu Chelik Ketanis, which means she must have brought even what she didn't have a right to into the estate. Ushmami no Midimoitzin Miyadai, since it could be taken away from him. The Yorish Hava, he must be a Yorish. The Lekeach Hava, if he has the din of a Lekeach, Milval Pehu, v'loy tar from mishabdi, and the balchayv cannot take away from the local. Zok the Gemara mashani lo'olam lekeachab miyu milva b'shtarhi. This is not considered the chiyuv of parnasa. The chiyuv to marry off a girl is not considered a milva al peh without a koil that there's no way the lekech could have known and protected himself from. Rather, he would have very well known, just like a milva b'shtar. High parnosas haktanos. The shiny parnosas nesuin. So the responses of the that we're talking about marriage funds. The islekalo. It's known that these will be required. Therefore, you could even take away money that was already sold, property that were already sold. So right now, we're still in a suffix. Is the Baal, does he have a din of a Yorish, or does he have a din of a Lekeach? And even the fact that we could take money away from him, we could take karka away from him, to marry up the younger girls, that doesn't prove that he's a Yerush, because even though Lekeach under these circumstances would be chayiv, because there's for sure a coil that these monies are owed. Omer a popular Lav Hainu the Sholach Ravin Begarte, isn't the answer to your question as to whether or not a Baal has a status of a Yerush or Lekeach? Isn't that clear from the letter that Ravin sent? What was the letter that he sent? Mishemes. Someone Rachman al was nifter. Benich almana ubas. He left over a widow and a daughter. So who's going to be yarshining his estate? His daughter. But the almana, it's also the Tnak Ksuba that she has a right to be mefarnish herself from the Ksuba until she remarries. Until she remarries, she could take mezonis from the Ksuba. And we'll soon see in the Gemaras later that the daughters have priority to her. So the pecking order is the daughters have the first rights to mezonis. The almana is only in second position. So what happened was he died and he left an almana and a bas. So there's no sons over here. So the halach is almanasai nizonis minachas. The almana will be able to take mezonis. Will be able to live off the estate. What happens if nisas abas? What if the daughter is now married and now she takes all of the assets of the estate into her marriage? Almanasai nizonis minachas. The almana can still take the nechas, take from the estate, even though now the estate has been acquired by her husband. The almana still has a right to take mizonis from that estate. What about meisabas? What if the daughter died and now her husband yarshined her? Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Achoisoi shel Rabbi Yosy ben Chanina al yadi hayamaisa. I actually had a story just like that, and you know what they paskined? They paskined almanasai nizoinos minachas. The almana still has a right to her mizoinos from the assets that now fully belong to her daughter's husband, and he completely yarshined her because she already died of us. So based on that psak, let's make an analysis. If the husband only has a din of a Yerush when he took over these properties that his wife brought into the marriage, then it's logical why the almana could be nizonis minachasa, because she is still considered in the estate, and in that estate she's entitled to take her money. If you're going to say that a Bava has a status of a lekeach, why did the almana have a right? Before we said marrying off a daughter, that is a koil, but an almana taking mizonis that doesn't have a koil, and of course the lekech is protected from it. But here you see the husband who yarshin is nechosim from his wife still has the liability to use this estate to support almana. It must be that he's a yorish, because if he's a lekech, there's no reason why the liability should still be there. So it seems like we have a raya of a mirror that Abal b'nichsa ishtoi has the status of a yorish, not of a lekech. So he's not afforded the protections of a lekech. Amar Abaye, Zok Abaye, are you telling me Ilav the Shalach Ravin Anan Lo Yadinan? You're making it sound that this is an epiphany, that if it wasn't for the fact that Ravin revealed to us this great big sight that a Baal b'nichsa ishtoi has the din of a Yerush, we would have never known. Of course we would have known. I don't need Ravin Damoy to tell me. I have a Mishnah. But now we had a simple Mishnah that said, we know the halacha is anything you buy, any karka, any steyachuza that you buy, the the purchase really is only a long-term lease until Yovel. Right? By Yovel, all of the purchases go back. So but if you yarshin something, it doesn't go back. So a great litmus test to determine if something is considered an acquisition through a purchase or an acquisition through a Yerusha would be, does it go back by Yovel? So that's another nafkamina between if Baal is Kiyarish or Baal is Kilakeach. So the following cases does not go back by Yovel. HaBechayra. So if a Bechar got Pishnayim, we don't say that Kam Yovel, it gets thrown back into the pot and they redetermine what everyone's chelik is. You don't say that because Yerusha does not go back by Yovel. V'hayorish is Yishtoi, and someone who yarshins his wife. What's the specific case that we're talking about? The Parashasam, Kasavar Yerusha's Abal Dairaisa. The Mishnah over there, the Gemara explains that Mishnah, that the fact that Yorish Ishtoy does not go back by Yovel is proof positive that the Yerusha's Abal Dairaisa, and that's why he gets to keep it even after Yovel. If you want to say he has a din of a lokeach, mishasha nasa, from the time that he married her, well then afilu la'achar misa loy nafka miklal mekach hamevcher b'tihad b'yovel. So the Rashbam is saying a very important thing. The Rashbam is saying once he originally acquired it by the marriage, b'tayras lokeach, when she dies, his status won't change to be a yovel. If he originally acquired it b'tayras lokeach, it's going to be its status forever. That could be a matter of a dispute, which Tosfos discusses. Maybe while she's alive, he has the din of a lakeach, but when she dies, maybe he should have the din of a yorish. But the Rashbam is saying, once we know that at the time of marriage, he had the status of a lakeach, it would have had to remain that way the whole time. And from the fact that you see that it doesn't go back, it must be that from day one, we look at the husband acquiring the nechasim of his wife as a Yerusha. So why do I need Ravin to tell me that? And that's why Ravin said that the almana can continue to be nizoin from the estate even after the husband yarshin his wife. I have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says it doesn't go back. So I have a beautiful Rav from Mishnah. What do I need Ravin for?
Maybe it depends between Nixim and Nixim.
This is all Nixim Alug. It's a very, very important thing that you're bringing up, and we'll get to the Rashbam in a second. Thank you for bringing it up. Amalei Rava, the hash of the Shalach via Dinan. And you think Ravin's Befal is a riot? Ravin. So first the Gemara asked what I need Ravin for. Who asked what I need Ravin for? Abai said I don't need Ravin. Rava said Ravin doesn't even help. Why? Because there's a famous Takonos Usha. What is the Takonos Usha? Ha'isha shemachra v'nichsei malug b'chayebai. Nichsei malug are nechasim that she brings into the estate. And her husband's alive, they're married, and she just what is the status of Nichsei malug? The status of Nichsei malug is that she owns the guf and he owns the payers. He gets the payers of this field. So let's say it's an apartment building. She owns the apartment building, but he gets to keep the rent of this building as long as they're married. What if she sells the building while they're married? And basically the deal would be, if I survive my husband, you get the building. If I die before my husband, you get nothing. So you're taking a gamble. So and then she ended up dying. So the halacha is, the Baal can go take that property away from the lekupos. Zok the Rashbam, but Usha iskinu, v'vasep Usha, shegilsa Sanhedrin l'shon. We know that the Sanhedrin had to move away from the Makam HaMikdash, and they were running court. They were operating the court in Usha. But Isha shemachar nichsem elug b'chayebai. And what was the deal? If her husband would die, then the purchaser would get to keep them. But if she dies first, Shabal and her husband will yash on her, Yavsidu, the purchaser will lose everything, which is their gamble. Nichsei malug are assets that she brought into the marriage from her father's household. Or she brought properties in that were not assessed by her ksuba. Nichlet Basel means whatever property she brings in are assessed at their value. Let's say they're assessed at $100,000, and should the marriage end, the husband would have to give his ex-wife that full amount. But Nichse Maluk, he's not accepting any responsibility because the karkois remain by her. He's just eating payers, and therefore the Baal is not a choy for him. If it was Tzoin Barzel, that means the Baal is writing, I am liable to pay you $100,000 when this marriage ends. So he's fully responsible for any damage that occurs to the assets. By Nichse Maluk, he's not responsible. But the Oichel Peiresein B'chayah, he's entitled to eat the payers of the Nichse Maluk, which is also not a deraisa. That's kitakanos chachamim tachas. Since if she would be captured, he would need to pay the full ransom. That's a big liability. We want to give him something in return, so that's why he gets the payers of the Nichse Maluk. Ulahachi mikri maluk. Why are they called Nichse Maluk? Shemoil gold umachasrin Baal, because the Baal is depleting them. I guess Malik is a lotion of depleting. Sheoichla pairs kamaligas arach. He's eating the pears, like maybe cutting off the head. I'm not sure what exactly. Okay, like taking off. So now let's fear ice. If you would agree to me that the husband has the status of a lekeach, and when does that status begin? Bishah shanosa. The moment he buys her, he's the lekeach. So if she sells later, she sold that guy, whoever she sold it to, the Brooklyn Bridge, because she sold something that was already sold. He already got it. So if you consider him a lekeach, and he becomes a lekeach at the moment that he marries her, mishum mapik, that's why, should the wife die, the husband can take any asset away from the lekeach, mishum the lekeach rishonha. The husband bought it first. You sold her, you sold Reuven what I had already bought from you and our marriage. If a husband only has a status of a Yerush, well then, Mishas Nasuna my mapik. Just like a father could sell a property and the children aren't yashining it, Yerusha means you get what's left over. But here he gets even something that was sold during the marriage. So Lama Tiknu Be'usha Shabal Moitzi. Why would the Baal be able to take it away? It must be that they gave him the status of a Lekeach. Baloya Isha, Tehima Reshes Oisai. The woman who's yashining it to him, machra, she sold it prior to her death. No one's going to say that a Yerush can go and claim back anything that their father has sold. Since in the Usha Bezna was masaket, that the husband has a right to take away from the Lakuchais. So therefore, that must be precisely what the Hakadosh Usha was. That is to give the husband the status of a lekeach. She abal lekeach b'nechosim b'shoshanos. The hilchah moiti. That's why you can take it away from lekeach. His purchase occurred at the time of his marriage. That preceded the sale that his wife made to this lekeach.
That's not on the same thing. He's getting when he gets married, he gets all the pirates. That's what he gets.
But in Usha, they made him a lekeach on the guf as well. So therefore, he got the guf even before they got it. She's not allowed to sell. It's an invalid sale. It's a scam. In fact, the point is not that she could sell it, can take it away. Her sale is not valid. Precisely that.
It's not valid if he survives.
Correct. Zok to Gemara, Ella. So now we're confused. Because on the one hand, we say it doesn't go back by Yovel. So it has the Yerush. On the other hand, he's in the first position to take the karka because it was him first. So now we're confused. Is it Yerush? Is it Kalakeach? Elamar Rashi, it's both. He's given the advantages of both. Baal Shavinu Rabbanan Yerush, Vishavu Kalakeach. We see that a Baal is an interesting buchadim because he has similarities to Alakeach and he has similarities to Yerush. The Heicha the Tav, let's fear us. They do what's best, and not necessarily what's best for him, but what's best for the situation, as we will soon see. Gabi Yovel, when's the question of Yovel? Does he get to keep it even by Yovel? There, Shavyu Rabban Kiyarish. Today. We don't want him to lose out what he got, as the Rishbam says. His nechosim that he got from his wife shouldn't go back to his wife's family. But Gabi Rabbi Yosy Bechadina. Meaning, if she sells it, there Shavunu Rabbanan Kalakeach. Again, Mishum Pseida Didei. to protect him that she should not be able to sell these assets while they're married. And Gabi de Ravin, who was talking about the Almana getting mizoinus, therefore we treat him like a Yerush. We should say the Almana Shavyunu Rabbanim ki Yerush. They made it like a Yerush because we don't want Almana to lose out on her mizoinus. The whole Gabi de Rabbi Yosy bechanina the ikab said the lekuchos Shavyu Rabbanim kolekach. If they're so worried about not hurting anybody, you know who's getting hurt? With the Takana Susha? The Lakukas are getting hurt. They bought a property from this woman, fair and square, and now the husband's taking it away from them. Why are you so worried about him? Maybe worried about them. You're worried about Talmana. Exactly what the Gemara answers. Beautiful. They brought this upon themselves. Given the Ikabal, they knew this was a married woman. They're buying a property from a married woman. Maybe it should have dawned upon them that there's going to be an issue over here. They had no business buying a property from a woman who they know is currently married to her husband, who really is supposed to Yarsha. As the Rashbam says, the Yasa Tusa Gavra, he's in line to Yarshan her when she dies. They made a conniving ploy to be able to get a discounted property and usurp it away from the husband who's really supposed to get it in the future. Therefore, they deserve to lose, and we don't protect them. So let's fear us. What about the big child? Is he like a lekech, the Baal, or is the Baal like a Yerush? Rabbeinu Chananel said, and I agree with him, Lovsa, that was the original Shaila. Is he like a Yerush, or is he like a lekech? Can he collect from those assets? We would also say that the Malva shouldn't lose out for lending this single woman money, and then she gets married and tries to use that to shelter her assets. It won't work. So that's how the Rashbam learned that because she wasn't married at the time. That's right. The only time you don't protect somebody is if you could tell somebody you brought this upon yourself. But a guy who innocently lends a single woman money, he didn't do anything wrong. So we need to protect him, to allow him to retrieve his assets, and therefore we stand with him. Okay, I want us to share a gewaltige shtickle, a raid bite. As the Shem. There's a beautiful raid bite on Yesh Noichlim that I want to share, but we also have to start the next parak. So let's start the next parak, and then I'm going to share with you a beautiful shtickle, raid bite. But Bez Hashem and B'neder hadin lach Yesh Noichlim, B'neder hadin lach Yesh Noichlim, B'neder hadin lach Yesh Noichlim. We're not really finished because I still have to get this raid bite in.
Aber du wirst doch gerne die Schiene noch at least 17 Uhr.
Misha makes somebody who passed away. V'hiniach bonim uvanos, and he left over Baruch Hashem sons and daughters. So how does it work? If there's plenty where the girls can be supported and there'll still be plenty of assets for the sons to take a Yerusha, so then what will happen is Habanim Yershu. The Banim will get the assets, and they will continue to support the daughters. But what if there's Nachasim? There is not enough to go around. So then we say that all the money has to be locked up to make sure that the girls, for the foreseeable future, will have a way to support themselves, and the boys, they'll have to knock on doors. Admonaimer. It doesn't matter as long as you could have $1 billion worth of ziburis, you could have $1 billion worth of idis.
I'm saying
it doesn't matter the quality of the chosim. We're liquidating. We'll be slowly liquidating to feed the family. Admonaimer. Ad says, I don't understand. Bishvil shani zocher hefsakti. What? Just because I'm a zocher, I should lose out? Meaning, Adman felt a zocher should be entitled. The Gemara is going, no, you're zocher, you should be entitled. So the Gemara is going to offer some interesting pshatim as to why a zocher should be entitled. Yes, we did. We had some subas. That's right. Amar Rabbi Gamliel. Rayani is Tivri Adman. I hear what Adman is saying. There's a shaila. So who do we pass on like? So let's look at the Rashbam. The Gemara Mefarish Ma'ika Amar. So does Admon mean to say that it's not fair that I should lose? So there's not enough to go around. So we'll all equally share it. And when it gets used up, we'll all go machshel psach. Why don't they get it exclusively? That's Admon's time. Amar Gamliel, the halacha is like Admon, the Mimim Perk Basra, the Ksubis, Kamakim Shomer Gamliel, Roya Ani is the very Admon halacha Kamoisa. So you see it's in Ksubis as well. Amar Rav Nachman, Roya Ani is the very Admon, Zokter Rashpam, Biksuba is Omar, Kal Makam Shomer Gamliel, Roya Ani is the very Admon, halacha Kamoisa. Right? That's what the Rashpam said as well. Amalei Rav Nachman, Afilu Bebrais. Mikola hi sugi mashma the halachic admon. From that all sugi it's mashma that we pass like admon that the boys get to share equally in this estate. They all live off it. They don't have to go schnorr until the assets are used up. The tema the halachic kamara kula shmaitza kirabanan kiraban the admon udalak hilchasa. If we were saying that Allah's like admon, it's hard to understand how our whole Gemara seems to indicate that we pass like the rabbanon of admon. Are you going to say our whole Gemara is not going to leave it to Hilchazah? We're going to see all the different sugyas. So therefore, for Rabbi Tam, Rabbi Alvis, no, Balachas Gedoylas, Rabbi Tam, Rabbi Alvis, Pasuk Rabbanon, the Admoin, they pass on the Rabbanon of Admoin, meaning that the boys have to be Machshel Psachim right now, and all the assets will be exclusively used for the daughters, which of the Shmaitin, the Hacha, Kavasaichelos. Rabbi Tam learns, it's the Rach. I wasn't looking at the Rach that we pass like the Rabbanon. But Rabbi Tam says it's not a machlokes at all. The Admon like Polak at the Rabbanon. He's not arguing, he's just complaining. So he was just venting. He wasn't saying that I argue on the lacha, he was just venting, so therefore we do pass. But mashma like that, say that I'm validating your concern. It's mashma that it's afsak halach. Another very important point is look at the Rashbam. I'm sorry?
The master do the pass like
the pass like Rabban. Rabban Shazunu, Mizoinois A Uparnosos Nesuin. So it's both. Remember the Rashbam made a distinction in the first mission. It's Mizoinois and Parnos Nesuin. Tosha doesn't like that. Because look at the Rashbam says. Look what Tosha says. Mashishka Rashbam, the Hadei Mizoinois Parnosa. He calls it both in the Rivan. In those, I hold they get mezainis, but they don't get parnos. The mezainis hanu achilu shtia. That's what they can take from the assets. Ufarnos anu mabushin, but tzarchen isuin utrei mili ninu. There are two separate things, and it's not so poshut. It says matina parnosav, ein matina mezainis. So it's mashma that our mission that says Nazoinus means only Nazoinus. Why is the Rashbam saying that it's referring to both when really the other thing is called Misparnus? That's right. So how much does there have to be in order for us not to lock up the whole estate and preserve it for the girls? If there's enough money that everybody could live off it for 12 months, then we don't lock it up, which means the boys and the girls get to take equally until it's used up, and then everybody has to be chazal. When I told this to Shmuel, because Rabbi Yehuda was a Talmud of Rav, and after Rav passed away, Rabbi Yehuda went to Shmuel's yeshiva, so he would sometimes share things that he learned by Rav with his new Rebbe, with Shmuel. Amar, he said, Shmuel told me, do Zudivei Rabbi Gamliel by Rabbi, it's not enough 12 months. That's not a lot of time. But let's say these girls are minor girls. There has to be enough money that all of these children will be adults. That could be 10 years. And if not, then the assets get locked up to exclusively service the girls. Itmanami, Kiyasa Rabban Amar B'Yochanan, Varmilo Amar Rabba Babachan Amar B'Yochanan, Kol Sheyazunu Mehem Elu Ve'elu Achi Yivgeru Hein Merubin. That's called Merubin, and therefore we'll let the boys take as well. But Pachas Mikad, if there's not enough, Hara'elu Mu'atin, and therefore the boys can't take anything, and it's all preserved for the girls to survive. V'Yileka Le'elu Ve'elu Achi Yivgeru Shatlu B'Nois L'Chulu. I don't understand. There's enough there's enough for all the girls to be supported until they're adults, and more than that, but not quite enough to fully support the boys until they're adults. So the girls should get everything. The girls should only get what they need to support themselves. That's what we should lock up. Why should we lock up extra? They're protected if we only lock up what they need for support. You're right. If there's not enough money that they should all survive, then you first carve out what they'll need for mezainos, and the leftovers the bottom do get. Now we're going to have to discuss, and that'll be tomorrow. Is what if the price of food went up after they died? We're making this determination upon death. What if food goes up? What if food goes down? Do you change the calculation? Do you revisit? Because I just want to share a Gavaltic situation. There was shilas that came up throughout the generations. I'm sure it's not that uncommon. Rahman al-Islam happened in Rabbi Eger's days, happened in Chassam Sofer's days. Is a guy goes away long term for business, and he comes back, and his wife is expecting, and he knows it can't be from him, and he says this child is a mamzer, and there's Adam that this woman was mezana, and of course he has to divorce his wife, but this child, there's question, and she says no, I'm 100% sure. The Vlad came from you. Yes, I was Muzama, but this Vlad is from you. You're the father of the child. They didn't have paternity tests in those days. And he says, no, this is not my child. So what do you do? It happened to sorry?
The study of 12 or 13.
Well, if it was longer, but the question is, it doesn't matter how long he was away for. The main thing is during the period of conception. So the shaila is, the shaila is he believed to say that this child is a mamzer? That is the question. So you might want to bring a raya from earlier Gemara. Remember we said a father has an amonis to say that my child is a mamzer, and we want to know how you know that. So Tosha says, you know that? Because if a father is Neman, if he has 10 boys, and he identifies the one of the younger boys as a mamzer, as a bechor, it must be that the other ones, their father's a milkman, right? So you see he has an amonis to make the child a mamzer, so therefore he has an amonis to make the child a mamzer. That was the discussion. So someone, I forgot the Dumba Veruv. I think it's quoted from him. He asked Zakash, I don't understand. When do you see a father has a right to make a child a mamzer? How does he have that koyach? That's only when it's in the process of identifying a bechor. He doesn't have some unlimited koyches to label a child as an almana. He has the ability to say this is a bechor, even though there's older ones. So agavarcha, he's making them into a mamzer. But over here, there's no older. He's not the younger of oldest. He's going and saying this is not my child. So who said he can be nema?
Who says he's making the other ones a mamzer? He married this woman after she had.
So the question, who said he should have an emos? So that was the discussion. Should he have an emos or not? So there's a gewaltig ishtigal. Let me ask you a question. What makes a child a bechor? Is it the first child to be born, or is it the first child to be conceived? What if a woman conceives and she gives birth after 9 months, and this other wife conceived and gave birth after 7 months? So it was born. So who comes first?
I said it was born first, even it was conceived later.
So he was the first Petarechem.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting R. It's an interesting R, but the Vilna Gaon has a beautiful stick. What is the price? It says v'chiyel ish shtei nashim ha'achas ahuva va'achas snua. What does it mean snua? What do you mean snua? It must be snua b'nisuah. If it's snua b'nisuah, then he's not married to her anymore, because he would have. If snua b'nisuah means she's not allowed to be married to her. She's not allowed to be married to her. You have to divorce her. Then he says,
makes the
only right. But make the shvantum to mizan. Rachel is called the sneer kash, but lamasa.
Also, the reason is
but that's not a make the okay. Here anyway. So the second question is. There's 2 children over here. There's obviously 2 children born. So I don't understand. Why don't you try to tell me that I shouldn't make him a bechor? He was born later. He can't be the bechor. He was born later. He's going to make believe. Zokt Vilna Gaon. You know what it's talking about? It's talking about he was married to a woman, and she conceived, and he divorced her. and then he married another woman, and she conceived, and her baby was born first. So now there's a havamina that he would say that the bechor is the ben ahuva. I'll put today ben ahuva bechor. Why? Because she was born first. Zokta Vilnagon, the Torah tells you that you don't look at when the baby was born, you look at when the baby was conceived, and therefore the bechor is the ben asnua, was conceived first, even if the baby was born later. So you see clearly that the bechor has to do with conception. So you see there's an amonis even on the uber, because that was always an amonis on the uber. So you have a raya that there would be an amonis on the uber. So that got into that child of whether or not he's nemon to say that this uber is a mamzer. So that was the stickle from the going that I want to share. Okay, we finished Perkei Shnoichlin. We only have about a month left till we're finished the Masechta. I think we're finished before Chanukah. Can you imagine? On Chanukah, we should be to finish this Masechta and many more.
It's 1 month. It's not Chanukah. It's not.